Hi, I'm Josh, and we're back again for another genre comparison video. This time we're going to be doing groove metal versus new metal, and it's going to, the drill by now. We're going to follow the same format as the previous two. If you've not checked them out, please do, because I'll really want this series to do pretty well. It takes me a long time to do these videos, so yeah, much appreciated if you could give me some feedback as well on these videos to make them a bit better than they are. But anyway, right, let's just get into it, starting with groove metal. It became a hugely popular genre of metal in the 1990s, massively influenced by thrash metal bands such as Metallica, Slayer, Megadeth, and Exodus. Death metal bands such as Obituary, Possessed, Morbid Angel, and traditional heavy metal bands such as Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Black Sabbath, and Motorhead. Origin is in the United States, but more specifically, Texas. We'll get onto why in a minute. The traits include heavy guitar riffs and syncopated rhythms, downtuned guitars to D standard or drop D, sometimes E flat, slowed down tempos, also uses fast tempos at certain times, technical guitar solos, double bass kick, and double bass kick drums. Vocal styles include yelling, growling, screaming, and raspy singing, or raspy vocals. Lyrics are often about addiction, war, politics, and anarchy. Pantera invented the genre in 1990 with their album Cowboys from Hell. Also, Prong's 1990 album Beg to Differ is also considered one of the first groove metal albums. Pantera released the massively successful Vulgar Display of Power in 1992, and also the thrash band X-Holder released The Law in the same year. Many other thrash metal bands such as Overkill and others also developed a groove metal style during this time. This paved the way for the genre to grow and break the mainstream in the early to mid-90s, with bands such as White Zombie, Sepultura, and Machine Head all emerging. This launched groove metal as probably the biggest metal genre at the time, roughly then. Adding to their previous breakthrough albums, Pantera released Far Beyond Driven to similar success in 1994. Other bands that had similar success during this time include Skin Lab, Pissing Razors, and Grip Inc. White Zombie released another successful album, Astro Creep, in 1995, and Pantera released the not as successful as their previous albums, The Great Southern Trendkill, in 1996. Also, Machine Head released their follow-up to their debut, The More Things Change, in 1997. And this was kind of the beginning of the end of the genre hitting the mainstream. After that, it was taken over by nu metal, which we'll get onto in a minute. After this, the genre slowly declined and became an underground genre for a few years. However, in the mid-2000s, there was an emergence of new groove metal bands, including Five Finger Death Punch, Damage Plan, Lamb of God, Chimera, Throwdown, and Hell Yeah coming through. Damage Plan was formed when Pantera broke up in 2003, with Dimebag Darrell and Vinnie Paul forming the band. Phil Anselmo and Rex Brown became full-time members of the band Down after having no longer any commitments in Pantera. Damage Plan released their one and only album in 2004 called Newfound Power. Shortly after this, Dimebag was sadly killed whilst performing at a gig. Vinnie would then go on to form Hell Yeah and was in the band till he also passed away in 2018. Also, Machine Head went back to their groove and thrash roots in the mid-2000s with their massive albums Through the Ashes of Empires and The Blackening. Sepultura also had quite an array of groove and thrash metal albums in the 2000s and 2010s. Groove metal has had a huge influence on genres that preceded it, including nu metal, metalcore, and deathcore. And albeit the genre isn't as popular as it was in the 90s, there are still loads of bands that use elements of groove metal in their music or have been influenced heavily by the genre and the bands in that genre. With bands such as Slipknot, Slayer, their latest stuff, Trivium, Hatebreed, Exodus, their latest stuff as well, Killswitch Engage, Black Label Society, Whitechapel, Suicide Silence, Chelsea Grin, Fear Factory, Soulfly, Cavalier Conspiracy, As Are They Dying, Code Orange, and loads more. Pretty much every band from 2000 onwards. Now we're going to move on to nu metal. It was a massively popular genre of alternative metal that developed in the mid to late 1990s. The origin is United States again, being influenced by a wide range of musical genres, including metal, rock, industrial and alternative music, grunge, funk, and hip hop. More specifically, thrash, death, and groove metal bands, such as the bands I've already said earlier, alternative, industrial, and funk bands, and hardcore bands such as Tool, Primus, Faith No More, Biohazard, Suicidal Tendencies, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Nine Inch Nails, and Rage Against the Machine. And hip-hop artists such as Dr. Dre and Run DMC are also considered as massive influences for the creation of the genre. Traits include heavy syncopated guitar riffs, no actual proper guitar solos, funk-like bass rhythms, and drum rhythms. Although some drummers like Joey Jordison use blast beats and double bass drums, but also they use hip-hop style drum beats as well. DJ sampling, and some bands use 7-string guitars. Mostly they use 6-string guitars to drop B tuning. Vocal styles include singing, screaming, rapping, and growling. Lyrical themes include anger, pain, angst, bullying, emotional issues, betrayal, and personal alienation. The beginning of the genre came to be when Korn released their self-titled debut album in 1994. This is considered as the very first proper nu metal album. POD and Sugar Ray also released albums not long after this, and they are also considered a big part of the genre's formation. As well as Deftones' first 2 albums, Korn's second album Knife is Peachy, and Sepultura's album Roots between 1995 and 97 began the mass popularity of the genre. After this, between 1998 and 2002, many nu metal bands emerged, including Limp Bizkit, Papa Roach, Soulfly, Kid Rock, Stained, Godsmack, Static X, Slipknot, Mudvayne, Trapped, Mushroomhead, and Disturbed, all breaking into the mainstream. Also, there were many established bands who changed their sound to appeal to the nu metal sound, such as Machine Head, Slayer, and Fear Factory. Plus, other bands during this time would also release a nu metal style album in order to be relevant and gain popularity. After Korn's commercially successful third and fourth albums in 98 and 99 respectively, the genre became the most popular metal genre at the time. There were many nu metal albums by bands during this time that were massively successful, and the turn of the millennium saw great success for the genre as well, with bands continuing to make commercially successful albums. However, the heights that Linkin Park's debut album Hybrid Theory made cannot be underestimated. Best-selling debut album by any artist or band in any genre in the 21st century, which is complete madness for me to think. During the end of the peak years for the genre, more bands had massively successful albums, including System of a Down's Toxicity, Drowning Pool Sinner, Korn's Untouchables, and Papa Roach's Love-Hate Tragedy. However, by 2003, the genre began to quickly decline in popularity due to the rise of metalcore and emo. With this movement, most nu metal bands changed their sound to remain relevant, with Linkin Park and Staind moving down a more alternative sound, Slipknot, Disturbed and Soulfly changing to a groove and heavy metal sound, Korn and Mudvayne maintained their nu metal sound for the most part, with some little changes here and there, and Limp Bizkit having a hiatus for 3 years. Although in the 2010s, the genre made a small comeback, with Korn, Limp Bizkit, Linkin Park and Slipknot and Staind all releasing albums with the old school nu metal vibe. Also, there was emergence of modern nu metal bands, such as From Ashes to New, Dead and Islander. Plus some metalcore and deathcore bands in the 2010s released albums with elements of nu metal in it. These bands include Of Mice and Men, My Ticket Home, Stray from the Path, Emmure, Sworn In and Suicide Silence. Also, Bullet for My Valentine and Machine Head both released albums in 2018 which had elements of nu metal in them as well. Nu metal had a massive influence on these bands and music as a whole, even though a lot of metal bands and old school metalheads do not see it as a proper metal genre, or they class it as the worst ever metal genre. You cannot deny its popularity and mainstream success. It brought metal to the masses between 98 and 2002, and its influence on modern metal bands and genres. The similarities between the two: both genres were massive trends, and they only lasted for a few years. Yeah, they had a peak for about 5 or 6 years, and then they kind of petered off, and then they had a small little rise again, but sort of, yeah, they're all kind of in the same sort of bracket now. During their peak, they were both the most popular genre of metal at the time. Yeah, they were everywhere on MTV and everywhere like that. Both genres dipped and then had a small revival. Yeah, I've just said that. They're similar stylistically, they are similar. Some similar kind of guitarist and groove metal elements are in nu metal as well, so there's that. The vocal styles are a little bit similar, with the growling, screaming vocals and a bit of singing vocals here and there. And both had one sort of creator. You know, Pantera is credited to create groove metal, Korn is credited to have created nu metal. The differences are lyrical themes are very, very different, almost the polar opposites. Groove metal is more of a takes more of a thrash metal kind of thing, and then nu metal takes more of a different sort of vibe. There are no guitar solos in nu metal. Downer. Nah, I'm a guitar solo guy. I much prefer it when songs have guitar solos in them. There are no rap vocals in groove metal, thank Christ. Slightly different influences for both genres. Groove metal was just entirely influenced by other metal, and nu metal was influenced by quite a lot of different varieties of music all coming together to create the nu metal sound. Nu metal got more hate than groove. I think that's about right. I don't think groove metal got a lot of hate from metal fans back in the day. Maybe they got a little bit, but not as much as nu metal. Everybody hates on nu metal. And even though they are stylistically a bit similar, they are a bit different. The song structures and the whole way the songs are and the songs go are very different. Now, finally, moving on to my final thoughts. I really like groove metal. Pantera are one of my favourite metal bands ever. They pretty much invented the genre in the 90s with all their albums, and the trend caught on to be a massive phase in metal history. massive part of the history of metal. Without groove metal, we wouldn't really have metal like we do today, because lots and lots of bands use groove metal elements in their music, and it's still around today, which is really good. It's really great to see that quite a lot of bands use some groove metal parts in their music, so it still lives on. Now, yeah, anybody between the age of like 28 and 34 are probably going to be really pissed off with me here, but I don't actually. I'm not a big fan of new metal. I don't like the idea of putting rap and hip hop, mixing it with metal music. I don't really doesn't really sit right with me. I'm not a big fan of rap and hip hop, which you probably would find odd to believe because I'm a young kid. But no, I've never really liked it. I've never really been into that kind of thing. But I do like Slipknot's music, obviously, and I think Supercharger by Machine Head is pretty good, and I don't mind some Korn stuff, but the rest of it, I'm not really interested really by it. It's not really my kind of thing, not really my cup of tea. But I can't deny that how popular the genre was and the short-term success, breaking the mainstream, and you know all the new metal albums at the time received platinum status, which is massive achievement for metal music really to be that popular, and the influence it's had on metal bands in the 2010s is pretty big, using elements of it, not a lot of it, but just little tiny little elements here and there, which is cool. But over time they were just little trends in music, in phases of music really, that were just here and then they're gone. And I do get why quite a lot of older metal guys don't really like it. They think it's pretty awful. And but I think quite a lot of the hate that it used to get has kind of died down now. It's just sort of just kind of just everybody just that goes, oh, new metal, oh, that was a thing. I don't really care about it anymore. It's just a phase. But it's good that quite a lot of, well, pretty much all of the metal genres are all on a level playing field right now. They all get the same attention, and there's not like a single sort of poster boy for the metal genres. It's sort of all on the same level playing field, which is really good. It's created something brilliant. So that was my comparison with new metal and groove metal. Which genre do you prefer, or do you like both? I'd love to know what you think. Do you think new metal is as hated now as it was 20 years ago? I would like to see what you think about that. If you like this video, give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and share with people that you think would like my content, my music stuff, and my guitar playing stuff, and all of that. And I'll see you in the next one. Keep it metal.